The war in Syria has forced hundreds of thousands of people to escape to Europe. Now, new satellite images released by the UN show the destruction rained down on the embattled city of Aleppo since the US-Russia ceasefire collapsed 2 weeks ago. These new pictures are from the city's rebel-held areas, showing before and after images of bomb damage and crushed buildings. The UN says hundreds of civilians, including children, have died in the recent violence. Let's go now to our correspondent, Ediz Tiyansan, who is in Iskenderun near the Turkey-Syria border. Ediz, what's the latest on the situation on the ground in Aleppo?
Well, we have just heard from the Syrian regime military. They said they will now reduce their airstrikes, particularly in the eastern rebel-held part of the city of Aleppo, on humanitarian grounds. They said this is going to be done in order to allow civilians, or anyone for that matter, who wants to leave the city in a peaceful way. Now, this comes right after mounting pressure both on the Syrian regime and its main ally, Russia, following 2.5 weeks of intense airstrikes across the eastern part of the city. Remember, the latest numbers indicated that more than 420 people had been killed in that part of the city. We've heard from the High Commissioner of Human Rights from the UN body saying that the airstrikes in that time period have been unprecedented, have been the most intense we have seen since the beginning of this civil war. And it was really because the Syrian regime had decided to start a new offensive, trying to take the entire city from the rebels since the ceasefire agreement fell apart. And now, because of this pressure, we are seeing a step back from the Syrian regime. But at this point, it is just a statement. We don't know if it is lip service or if they will actually live up to their promise.
Sergei Lavrov and John Kerry have spoken over the phone, despite the US formally calling off diplomatic talks with Russia on Syria. What's the latest on these ceasefire talks?
Well, Annalise, apparently this request came from the US State Department to have this phone conversation between the Secretary of State, John Kerry, and his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov. And it came only 2 days after the United States itself decided to suspend its bilateral dialogue with Russia over the Syrian issue. And later on, we got a clarification from the State Department spokesperson. Mark Toner said that this suspension still continues, but it doesn't stop Kerry from having regular discussions with Lavrov. And indeed, this phone conversation included other issues on Ukraine and North Korea as well. But with regards to Syria, Toner went on to say that it would be irresponsible of the states, given what's happening in Aleppo, to not have Kerry engage in regular discussions with Lavrov. But at this point, to make this clear, this phone conversation didn't lead to the resumption of talks of new efforts between Russia and United States to reach a ceasefire deal in Syria. That still doesn't exist. But we've also understood that Kerry has also been in contact with his counterparts in a series of different countries, including Britain, Germany, France, Turkey, European Union, and Qatar, all in the past 24 hours. And Toner went on to say that now they are leaning towards a new multilateral approach. They said that they will now be in contact with all of the countries that belong to the International Syrian Support Group. And they said that now they understood that all of these countries need to be part of the conversation in reaching a final resolution on the Syrian issue.
Ediz Tiyansan in Iskenderun, thank you for that update.